The angry shouts echoed through our bright dance studio as a dozen parents pushed their way inside, demanding we close down immediately because two women like us had no right teaching their daughters anything. Little did they know that the biggest shock of the day would come from one of their own daughters, who stepped forward to defend Skylar and me in front of everyone. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Riverton, Oregon, population barely 12,000, and the sunlight streaming through the tall studio windows suddenly felt colder. Skylar and I had poured every penny and every dream into Harmony Dance Studio for 6 months. The classes for teenage girls had been thriving. Girls who arrived shy and left glowing with new confidence. We never hid who we were. Our wedding photo hung proudly by the front desk. Two brides in simple white dresses laughing under Oregon rain. But that photo became the spark that lit the fire. Linda Thompson, PTA president and mother of our star pupil Ava, led the charge. Her face was flushed, her designer purse clutched like a weapon. "This ends today," she snapped, waving a printed screenshot of an old Facebook post where Skylar had simply written, "Married to the love of my life." Behind her, other mothers nodded, eyes darting between us and the girls still stretching at the bar. "My daughter has been coming here 3 times a week. I trusted you. Now I find out you're lesbians? Absolutely not. I'm pulling Ava out right now." I felt my stomach drop. Reyna Martinez, 34, former competitive dancer from California. The one who always believed love should be louder than fear. Skylar squeezed my hand, her blonde ponytail swinging as she stepped forward. "Linda, please. The girls are learning pirouettes in confidence, not anything else. This studio is a safe space for them to grow." Safe space. The words hung in the air like a challenge. One mother gasped audibly. Another started herding her daughter toward the door. Within minutes the studio emptied except for Ava Thompson herself. 16, long brown hair. The girl who could nail a triple turn better than anyone her age. She stood frozen by the mirror, eyes wide but not scared, something fiercer. "Mom, stop," she said quietly, but Linda was already dragging her by the elbow. That night Skylar and I sat on the worn couch in our little rented house 2 blocks from the studio. The silence was heavier than any argument. "Maybe we should close for a while," I whispered, staring at the ceiling. Skylar's head rested on my shoulder, her voice steady but tired. "Reyna, this is our life. We fought for the right to open this place together. If we fold now, what message do we send those girls?" I wanted to believe her, but the knot in my chest tightened. My phone buzzed. My older sister in California. "Reyna, Mom saw the local news clip. They're calling it a scandal. Think about the family." Family. The word tasted bitter. I had come out to them at 20, and every holiday since had been a battlefield of careful silences. By morning the flyers were everywhere. "Protect our daughters, boycott Harmony Dance." Social media exploded with comments questioning our agenda. 3 more parents emailed cancellations before breakfast. I taught the remaining 4 girls that afternoon with a smile glued on, but inside I was unraveling. Each ply felt like a question. Is our love really worth costing these kids their joy? Skylar moved through the room correcting posture. Her usual sparkle dimmed. When the last girl left, she locked the door and leaned against it. "They're scared of what they don't understand, Reyna." But Ava stayed. She told her mom she's not quitting. A small victory, yet it felt like the eye of a storm. The next week the storm hit harder. Linda organized a petition with over 200 signatures. The local paper ran a front-page story titled "Local Dance Studio Faces Backlash Over Owner's Lifestyle." Parents who once waved hello now crossed the street. Skylar's mother called from Seattle, voice trembling. "Honey, maybe tone it down. Just for a bit." Tone it down. As if our wedding rings were optional accessories. I watched Skylar hang up and press her palms to her eyes. And something inside me cracked. We had promised each other forever, but forever was suddenly measured in canceled classes and sleepless nights. Still, every evening Ava showed up alone, practicing her routines with a determination that made my throat tight. "You two taught me I don't have to shrink myself," she said one night after rehearsal. "Please don't let them win." Her words were a lifeline, but I could already feel the price we would all pay starting to mount. The petition reached the city council by Friday, and suddenly our little studio was front-page news across the county. I stood at the window watching Linda Thompson hand out more flyers on the sidewalk, her smile polite for passersby but her eyes sharp when they landed on our sign. Skylar was in the office balancing the books, numbers that were bleeding red. "We can last 2 more months if we cut everything non-essential," she said, rubbing her temples. "But Reyna, some of the girls' parents are threatening to sue the studio for emotional harm." Emotional harm. Because we exist. I sat beside her, tracing the edge of our marriage certificate framed on the desk. The paper felt fragile now. My mind kept replaying the moment Linda had called us immoral influences in front of Ava. What if she was right? What if our openness was costing these girls their social lives, their friendships, their futures in this tight-knit town? The guilt gnawed at me every night while Skylar slept. I loved her more than anything, yet I wondered if loving her openly was selfish when it hurt innocent kids. Ava arrived early for her private lesson on Saturday, cheeks flushed from biking across town. "Mom grounded me for arguing," she admitted, dropping her bag. "She says I'm confused because of you too. But I'm not confused. This studio is the only place I feel strong." Skylar pulled her into a quick side hug, the kind of easy affection we gave all the girls. "You don't have to choose sides, Ava. We just want you to dance." But Ava shook her head. "I already chose. I'm staying." That choice exploded at home for her. Monday evening my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Your influence is destroying my family." Attached was a screenshot of Ava's Instagram story. A simple photo of her in the studio with the caption, "Grateful for teachers who see me." Linda had commented publicly, "Delete this immediately." Ava never deleted it. Instead, she showed up Tuesday with a bruise on her wrist from where her mother had grabbed her too hard during an argument. Skylar iced it gently while I fought the urge to drive to the Thompson house myself. "We can't get involved in their family stuff," Skylar warned me later, but her voice wavered. We both knew we already were. The betrayal came from someone I least expected. Jenna, one of the older girls who had danced with us for 5 months, posted a video on TikTok. In it she cried to the camera, "I thought they were cool, but now I feel weird changing in the same room. It's not right." The video went viral in Riverton circles. Jenna's mother had offered her a new iPhone if she spoke out. When Jenna didn't show for class, Skylar cried in the storage room for the first time since we opened. "She was our success story," she whispered. "Now she's using us to get likes." I held her while my own anger burned. The price was no longer just lost students. It was lost trust, lost pieces of the girls we had grown to love like our own. My sister flew in unannounced Wednesday night. "Reyna, this has gone too far. Mom's having chest pains again. Dad says if you don't close the studio he's cutting you out of the will." She sat at our kitchen table drinking coffee like it was a negotiation. Skylar stayed quiet, but I saw her flinch when my sister added, "You're dragging an innocent child into your lifestyle war." Ava wasn't innocent in the way my sister meant, she was brave. But the words landed anyway. That night Skylar and I lay in bed not touching for the first time in years. "Maybe we're the ones being selfish," I said into the dark. Skylar turned to me, eyes glistening. "Or maybe the world is. I don't know anymore, Reyna. I just know I can't lose you." The uncertainty between us felt heavier than any protest outside. The school board meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday, and somehow our private studio had become a public referendum. Riverton High School offered their auditorium because community safety was now an issue. Skylar and I debated for hours whether to attend. "If we don't show up, they win the narrative," I argued. Skylar nodded, but her hands shook as she chose her outfit. A simple navy blouse and slacks that screamed professional, not provocative. We walked into the packed room holding hands because hiding now would have been the real betrayal. Linda spoke first, voice steady and practiced. "These women are role models for our daughters at a vulnerable age. Their relationship sends the wrong message about family and normalcy." Applause rippled through the crowd. Parents held signs. "Children deserve protection." I felt every eye on us like judgment. Then Ava stood. She wasn't on the agenda, but she walked to the microphone anyway, voice clear despite the tremor. "My mom says I'm too young to understand, but I understand that Reyna and Skylar never once made me feel anything but respected. They taught me to stand tall even when the world wants me small. If you close their studio, You're closing the only place some of us feel safe. The room went dead silent. Linda's face drained of color. Cameras flashed. For one electric moment it felt like Ava had shifted the tide. But tides turn back. After the meeting, 3 more girls quit. Jenna's video had inspired copycats. One mother cornered me in the parking lot. Your love is costing my daughter her friends. She's being bullied now because she defended you. The words cut deeper than any shout. That night Skylar paced our living room. Reyna, what if we're hurting them more by staying open? Ava's mom is threatening to send her to boarding school. We can't be responsible for that. I wanted to argue, but doubt was a living thing inside me now. Was our right to exist more important than a 16-year-old's home life? My own family pressure peaked when my parents called on speakerphone. We raised you better, my father said. Close that place or don't expect us at Thanksgiving ever again. Skylar left the room so I could cry alone. When she came back, she handed me a cup of tea and simply said, I'm tired of being the villain in everyone's story. We held each other then, but the embrace felt fragile, like we were both waiting for the other to break. Ava showed up the next day with a black eye. Her mother had slapped her after the meeting. She said I humiliated her in front of the whole town. Skylar drove her to urgent care while I stayed behind to teach the 3 remaining students. Each ply felt like defiance. When they left, I sat on the floor and let the tears come. The moral line was blurring. Fight for our studio and risk destroying Ava's family, or close and betray every girl who still believed in us. Skylar returned pale. The doctor says it's just bruising, but Reyna, she asked if she could stay with us if things get worse. We both knew saying yes would be the ultimate line crossed. Yet saying no felt impossible. The local news ran the headline, Teen Defies Mother to Save Lesbian Dance Studio. Comment sections filled with both support and venom. Donations trickled in from strangers across Oregon, but so did death threats. One letter slipped under our door read, God will punish you for corrupting children. Skylar burned it in the sink while I watched, the flames reflecting in her eyes. We're not corrupting anyone, she whispered, but the conviction in her voice had thinned. My sister's visit had planted seeds of doubt that grew overnight. I started waking at 3 a.m. wondering if our marriage had become a battlefield instead of a home. Skylar noticed. One evening she set down her book and asked quietly, Do you regret marrying me? The question cracked me open. Never, I answered, pulling her close. But I regret what it's costing everyone else. We made love that night with a desperation that felt like goodbye and promise at once, 2 bodies clinging to the only certainty left. Ava's situation deteriorated. Linda filed for a temporary restraining order claiming we were alienating her daughter. The court date was set for the same week as our lease renewal. Skylar suggested we consider moving the studio to Portland. Bigger city, less hate, she said. But leaving Riverton felt like running, and Ava would be left behind. The trade-off haunted me. Safety for us versus abandonment for the one girl who had risked everything. Then the ultimate betrayal arrived in the form of a certified letter. Jenna's mother was suing us for intentional infliction of emotional distress, citing the TikTok as evidence that our presence caused her daughter psychological harm. The legal fees would wipe us out. Skylar read the document twice, then looked at me with exhausted eyes. Reyna, maybe this is the sign. We fought hard. But if we lose the studio, we still have each other. I wanted to agree. Instead, I heard myself say, if we close, Ava loses the only adult ally she has. We'd be proving every hater right. That our love isn't worth protecting. The argument that followed was the worst we'd ever had. Words like selfish and coward flew between us before we both retreated to separate rooms, hearts raw. Ava texted at midnight. Mom says if I see you again she'll homeschool me in another state. But I'm not giving up on you too. Her bravery made my shame burn hotter. How could we even consider quitting when a child was willing to lose her home for us? The next morning Skylar and I sat at the kitchen table, coffee untouched. We stay, she said finally. But we need a plan that protects Ava too. For the first time in weeks the air between us felt clear again. We were still a team, even if the cost was climbing higher than we could count. The town hall hearing was moved to the high school gymnasium, because the auditorium could no longer hold the crowd. Over 400 people showed up, Parents, students, reporters, even a few supporters from Portland who drove 3 hours. Skylar and I sat in the front row. Hands clasped so tightly our knuckles were white. Linda spoke for 20 minutes about parental rights and protecting innocence. Each sentence landed like a stone on my chest. When it was our turn, I stood and simply said, "We opened this studio to give girls a place where they are seen and celebrated. That's all." My voice barely carried, but Skylar's steady presence beside me gave me strength. Then Ava rose. The entire room seemed to hold its breath as she walked to the microphone, shoulders back exactly the way we had taught her in class. "I'm 16, she began, voice steady despite the tears gathering. "My mom thinks Reyna and Skylar are dangerous, but they're the reason I stopped cutting last year. They're the reason I believe I can go to college for dance. Their love isn't a threat. It's the example I needed that honesty matters more than popularity. If you close their studio, you're telling every kid here that being different is punishable. I won't let you do that to them or to me." She turned to her mother in the third row. "I love you, Mom, but I love myself too. And I'm staying with Reyna and Skylar tonight." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Linda stood, mouth open, then sat back down as if the wind had been knocked out of her. The board voted. The studio could remain open, on probation with mandatory sensitivity training, for us and parental opt-out forms. It wasn't victory, but it was survival. Outside, reporters swarmed. Ava stood between us while flashes popped. "I'm not going home tonight," she told a camera. "My place is with the people who never asked me to choose." In that moment I saw the girl we had taught become the woman who taught us. But the aftermath was immediate. Linda screamed at Ava in the parking lot until security intervened. Skylar and I drove Ava to our house in silence, the weight of what she had sacrificed settling over us like fog. That night she slept on our couch, and Skylar and I lay awake listening to her quiet sobs. "We didn't ask for this," I whispered. Skylar answered, "No, but we're responsible for it now." The following weeks were a strange mix of relief and wreckage. Enrollment slowly climbed back to 12 girls, some new, some returning quietly. The probation terms meant extra paperwork, but the studio stayed open. Ava moved in with her aunt across town after the court granted temporary custody changes. Linda refused to speak to her daughter, posting long Facebook rants about brainwashing. The family rift was complete, and every time Ava practiced a new routine I felt the guilt twist deeper. We had gained a daughter in every way but the one that didn't cost her everything. Skylar and I rebuilt slowly. The nights we once spent arguing became nights of quiet planning. New scholarships for girls who faced similar backlash, community talks about inclusion. My parents still hadn't called, but my sister sent a single text. "I was wrong. I'm proud of you." Small mercies. The inner conflict that had torn at me for months finally quieted into something steadier. Our love had survived the fire. It was forged stronger even if scarred. One evening Ava nailed a perfect triple pirouette and turned to us with the brightest smile I had ever seen. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she said. Skylar pulled her into a hug while I wiped my eyes. In that moment the price we had all paid felt almost worth it, almost. Because Linda still watched from afar, eyes hollow. Jenna still avoided eye contact in the grocery store. The town was changed, but healing would take years. As the studio lights dimmed that night, Skylar locked the door and leaned against me under the street lamp. "We made it," she whispered. I kissed her forehead, tasting salt from tears I hadn't realized were falling. We had faced the storm, lost friends, nearly lost each other, and gained a fierce ally in a 16-year-old who taught us what courage really costs. True or false? Standing up for love and truth is always worth the pain it causes the people you care about most?